Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today's date is October 18th, 2020, and that means that we are exactly 1 month away from the 2020 NBA draft, which will take place on November 18th, 2020. I decided that in honor of it being exactly a month before the draft, I am going to make my first mock draft of the year. There will be another one that comes out much closer to draft day, but these are my thoughts on what every team should do right now. Like I just said, this is what I think they should do. Now, what I think they will do, because obviously I don't have any inside information from these NBA front offices, because I'm a high school kid with a YouTube channel that has 22 subscribers or something like that. So, yeah, I'm not exactly getting the scoop from the Detroit Pistons front office and Troy Weaver. No, this is what I think that the team should do. So, let's get right into it. The Timberwolves have the number one overall pick, and there's been a lot of debate on what they should do with this particular pick. However, I think they should just not think about it and go with the guy with the highest overall potential in this draft. And in my opinion, that guy is LaMelo Ball from the Illawarra Hawks of the NBL in Australia. I think that LaMelo is going to develop into a really, really good point guard, starting point guard in the NBA with some all-star potential as his ceiling. I also think that his floor is considerably higher than a lot of people believe it to be, as I think that no matter what, he's going to end up being a rotation player due to his ability as a playmaker. This past playoff run, we saw the value that playmakers have in the playoffs. And I think that LaMelo is probably the best passer in this draft, so I think that the Timberwolves should not think twice and take him with the number one overall pick. I think that a lot of people have been saying that he would be a poor fit with D'Angelo Russell. However, I do think that having D'Lo play off the ball a bit more could be promising for him because he is a pretty solid spot up shooter, and this way the Timberwolves would have two really, really good primary ball handlers on their roster that could be on the court in alternating minutes. I think that there's potential that the Timberwolves could trade this pick for a win now player like Zach LaVine, especially considering that they traded away their first round pick next season to the Warriors in the D'Angelo Russell trade. So next year, there's not going to be a whole lot of reason for them to be losing a lot of games. They're going to want to be competitive, and for that reason, I think that this is a tradable pick. However, if they do make the selection, I think LaMelo Ball is the name that should be called off by Adam Silver on November 18th. With the second overall pick, I have the Golden State Warriors taking James Wiseman from Memphis. I think that Wiseman is either the second or third best player in this draft. I think that him and Anthony Edwards are very close. However, I have the Warriors taking Wiseman because he is a better fit for them, and I do think that he can be a valuable player for them within the next 2 to 3 years. Obviously, in his rookie season, he's not going to do a whole lot to help this team win a championship because he's a rookie, and you just don't see that kind of contributions from rookies, with the exception of Tyler Hero. But I do think that this team's title window extends past just this 2021 season. They'll be contenders until 2022 or 2023. And at that point, I think that James Wiseman will be ready to help them out, similar to the growth we saw from Miles Turner in Indiana as a player on the defensive end of the floor. I think that by the end of his rookie deal, he's going to be ready to be a very, very good defensive anchor for this Warriors team, and he can be a defensive player of the year someday down the line, in my opinion. So I do think that Wiseman is probably the second best player in this draft, and he's also a solid fit for the Warriors. So that's who I have them taking with the second overall pick. At number three, I have the Charlotte Hornets taking Anthony Edwards from Georgia. I think that Edwards is the third best player in the draft, so we pretty much went 1, 2, 3 in order in this top three, but that's because they're the three guys with the most star potential, and that's really what you want at the top of the draft. Edwards, in particular, seems to be a guy that came out of a factory. He is the perfect body for an NBA 2 guard, and with his ability and confidence shooting the ball, there is potential that he can grow into an all-star. However, I do have questions about him and his motor. He was not a good defender at all in his one season at Georgia this year, and he also had some pretty skeptical shot selection as he took a lot of pull-ups and not so great step backs when really he could have gotten to the rim a lot more than he did due to his professional level body and the type of competition he was playing against. So that does worry me quite a bit, and that's part of why I have him dropping to 3. However, the Hornets need a star. They have some good young role players that can be nice surrounding pieces, but they need to find that star, and Anthony Edwards is their first real shot at finding that guy with the 3rd pick in the draft this year. With the 4th overall pick, I have the Bulls taking Deni Avdija from Maccabi Tel Aviv in Israel. I think that Deni fits perfectly with this team. They have a backcourt in Kobe White and Zach LaVine that is score first, and I think that Deni can be a perfect supporting guy for that backcourt in the front court. Deni is more of a pass-first player, and he can be a really solid playmaker for this team. That's probably his most enticing attribute, and on a team with 2 guards, they're going to look to score the ball more than pass it. That can be the perfect guy to slot in at the 3 spot. Deni's shooting has some question marks, but I do think he'll figure it out due to his form looking pretty solid. However, a 58% mark at the free throw line does make me pretty nervous. However, I do think this is the right pick for the Bulls at number 4, and that's who I believe that they should go with. With the 5th overall pick, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers taking Onyeka Okongwu from USC. Onyeka might not appear to have a place in this Cavaliers front court with Kevin Love and Andre Drummond and Larry Nance Jr. already being there. However, I don't really think that either of those 3 are pieces that are going to be a part of this team moving forward. Love could be traded as early as this offseason. Drummond is a free agent after this year, and I don't really see him as a long-term solution at the center position. And Larry Nance is on a very desirable deal, and he's a pretty good player. So I could see them getting maybe a late first-round pick in this draft in exchange for Larry Nance. And if they are offered that, I do think that they should accept it due to their window not being anytime soon to compete for a championship. Their 2 best pieces are the Sexland backcourt and Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. And they need to surround those 2 guys with some guys that can support them, especially on the defensive end of the floor, which is where those guys very much struggle. And Okongwu is one of the best defenders in this class, and he can really be a great addition for them at the center position. With the 6th overall pick, I have the Atlanta Hawks taking Tyrese Haliburton. This is a pick that I feel pretty strongly about, and I believe will likely happen. I think that Haliburton is a perfect fit alongside Trae Young as a guy who can shoot the ball and defend really well also. He is one of the best catch-and-shoot guys in this entire draft as he shot about 42% on catch-and-shoots this past year with Iowa State in college. He can defend pretty well at the point of attack. He's not a great on-ball guy, but he is a good team defender, and the Hawks need all the good team defenders they can get alongside their superstar, or their future superstar, I should say, in Trae Young. I think that Haliburton is the perfect backcourt partner for him, especially because he can also provide some backup point guard minutes when Young is not on the floor as the primary ball handler in those type of lineups. So that's who I think the Hawks should take at number 6. With the 7th overall pick in the draft, I have the Detroit Pistons taking Killian Hayes from Ulm in Germany. I believe he played in Germany, but he is French-born. I might be wrong about that, but that's what I think. Killian is one of my favorite players in this entire draft, and I view him as probably the 4th best player. However, I don't think that the fit is great at any of the teams picking 4th, 5th, or 6th due to the Bulls having Kobe White and Zach LaVine, the Hawks or the Cavs having Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, and the Hawks having Trae Young, and I don't think Killian would fit great alongside Trae Young. So I have him falling all the way to 7, where I think the Pistons should gobble him right up. I think that he will be the perfect guy for them to start building around. He can have Derrick Rose as a mentor this season, and if they trade Rose at the deadline, he can move into a starting role. This team is getting ready to start a big rebuild, and I think that Killian can be a really nice centerpiece for them going into that. I also think that he could establish some really good chemistry with guys like Christian Wood and Luke Kennard, and this could be a solid team moving forward once they are able to develop a good young core. I really like Killian. I think that he's going to be a fantastic player. He's obviously a little more left-hand dependent than you would like to see, but I do think that there is some all-star potential here, and I think the Pistons would love to get him at number 7. With the 8th overall pick, I have the New York Knicks taking Obi Toppin from Dayton. I've been harping on this one for a while now, and I think that if Toppin falls to 8, which in my opinion he should, I think I have him 8th on my big board, the Knicks should be the team to take him. I think that he is the perfect frontcourt partner for Mitchell Robinson, and I also think that he is a guy with a bit more of a high ceiling than some of the other guys that even are going above him in this draft. However, he does have a bit of a lower floor than guys like Halliburton and Okongwu, in my opinion, due to the question marks on the defensive end of the floor. I think that it's very likely that he becomes, or not likely, but very possible that he becomes like a Kyle Kuzma, who can do some stuff on offense, but is really just not a great defender and can't do much even on offense besides score the ball. But even if that is what happens, his ability to score is going to make him an NBA player, and I think that he can be a nice player for the Knicks moving forward, especially due to his struggles on the defensive end of the floor potentially being made up for by Mitchell Robinson's ability on that end of the floor as an excellent shot blocker and shot contester. With the 9th overall pick in the draft, I have the Washington Wizards taking Devin Vassell of Florida State. Devin Vassell. I think that Vassell is an excellent shooter, and although we did see that video come out where he had a weird hitch in his shot, but I'm going to trust the game tape a bit more, that is what his shot really looks like, and we saw him shoot the ball at a very high percent throughout his 2 seasons in college, albeit at a bit of a low usage standpoint from Vassell. However, I do think that is going to translate for him, and he also is very good on the defensive end of the floor. He's not as big of an impact defender as someone like Isaac Okoro or Patrick Williams can be, as we will see later in this draft with those two guys, but he's a good team defender, and his ability to shoot the ball on the other end of the floor is what makes him one of the more desirable wings in this draft, in my opinion. With the 10th overall pick, I have the Phoenix Suns taking Kira Lewis, and I think that this is a perfect guy for them, and they should grab him right here. He can handle a lot of the secondary playmaking role in this team alongside Devin Booker as the primary playmaker for years to come. He can learn under Ricky Rubio for the next 2 seasons, as Rubio can be his mentor and kind of teach him the ropes of the NBA. And after Rubio's contract expires, he will be an excellent contingency plan for the Suns at the point guard spot. I'm really high on Lewis, and I think that his ability as a speedy player who can shoot the ball and play solid defense will make him a starting NBA point guard despite his slight frame. And I think that if he's here for the Suns to take at 10, they should pick him right up. At number 11, I have the San Antonio Spurs taking Isaac Okoro from Auburn. A lot of people are much higher than this on Okoro. However, I do have some questions about him specifically due to his poor shooting. However, he is an excellent team defender, an excellent on-ball defender. He can get to the rim well, and he's a solid playmaker in addition to that. He's pretty much good at everything except for shooting, and shooting is kind of a big deal in the NBA, and I don't have a whole lot of faith in that shot working out just due to how funky it really is. So Okoro is one of my guys that I'm much lower on than the general consensus in this draft, and I could really see him slipping all the way down to this 10 to 14 range. However, he does have enough star potential, maybe more so than anyone I have going outside of the top five in this draft, due to his ability to do so many things well. But I do think that the shooting is the swing skill. If he can figure out the shooting, maybe he'll be an all-star. If he can't, he's nothing more than a role player. And that's why I have him falling all the way to 11. With the 12th pick in the draft, I have the Sacramento Kings taking Saddiq Bey from Villanova. We've seen Villanova guys like Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo all translate really, really well to the NBA after college, and Jay Wright is one of the better coaches in all of college. So I do think that Bey is going to be a solid NBA player. He can do some playmaking out of a wing spot. He can shoot the ball pretty well at about a 40% mark from the three-point line. He is an excellent defender, and he can guard pretty much 1 through 4, although I do think he might struggle on some of the quicker ones at the NBA level, guys like Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. However, for the most part, he can guard 1 through 4, and that is a very desirable attribute. I think that he can be a perfect guy as a secondary ball handler and playmaker on the Kings with De'Aaron Fox, and he can be a very nice shooting complement to Fox, and perhaps a guy who will replace Buddy Hield at that wing spot. So Saddiq Bey to the Kings at 12 is one of my favorite spots for him to fall, and he is one of my favorite players in the draft, so that's where I've got him going. Maybe a little higher than most people would, but I do like Saddiq Bey quite a bit. With the 13th pick in the draft, I have the New Orleans Pelicans selecting Tyrese Maxey from Kentucky. This is another guy that I am probably higher on than most people. However, I do think that Maxey is going to be a really good NBA player, a la Tyler Hero or Devin Booker, Kentucky guys of the past. I don't think that he will be as good as either of those two guys, but I do think that he is going to end up being a solid NBA starter by the end of his rookie deal. Maxey's a strong player, and he can shoot the ball all right. His efficiency wasn't great this year, but I do think that that is a bit of a fluke, and I think that he will shoot the ball better at the NBA level next year. I'm a big believer in Tyrese Maxey, and I think that he is going to end up being a very, very solid player for this Pelicans team if they're able to draft him. I think that eventually he will be able to be a very nice scorer for them, whether it's as a Drew Holiday replacement in the starting lineup or as a JJ Redick replacement off the bench. I really like this pick for the Pelicans. With the 14th overall pick, I have the Boston Celtics selecting Patrick Williams from Florida State. The second Florida State guy off the board goes to the Celtics at the end of the lottery, and I think that this would be an ideal pick for the Celtics. It seems like the type of guy that Danny Ainge would love to snatch up, and I think that Williams has potential to be a very, very good player. He's one of the more project-y guys in this draft, as I don't know if it'll come on his rookie deal, but he eventually will be a good player in the NBA. He's already a pretty solid defensive guy, as he's a great team defender, and he does do a good job of making some impact plays, like getting key blocks and steals. However, on the offensive end of the floor, he's very raw. The shooting is all right, but there's really no skill on the offensive end of the floor that you can really point to as a huge plus for Patrick Williams, so that is definitely where he needs to improve. With the 15th overall pick, I have the Orlando Magic taking RJ Hampton from the New Zealand Breakers in the NBL. RJ obviously took the same path as LaMelo Ball and went to the NBL. Unfortunately, it did not increase his draft stock like it did for LaMelo. In fact, it likely decreased it. However, we have seen some shooting videos that have made RJ seem like perhaps he can rekindle some of that draft flame that appeared to be there but prior to this season in New Zealand for him. I really don't see him going much higher than 15th. However, at this spot, this is a chance for the Magic to grab a guy who can be a very good scoring guard for them in the future, and I think that this is the guy they take. With the 16th overall pick in the draft, I have the Portland Trail Blazers taking Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt. Nesmith can play one of those wing spots that this season were kind of inconsistent for them. They had Carmelo Anthony starting there throughout the playoff run, as well as guys like Rodney Hood and Gary Trent. And I think that Nesmith has a chance to be the best of anyone in that group. There's some Allen Crabbe type stuff here as a guy who can move without the ball and knock down shots. I think he shot over 50% in limited usage, or not limited usage, but limited time this year at Vanderbilt due to an injury he suffered at the beginning of SEC play. But I do think that he's going to end up being a solid NBA role player due to his shooting, and the Blazers should add him as a guy who can play alongside Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. With the 17th overall pick, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves taking Precious Achiuwa from Memphis. I think that Precious is going to be a solid 5 guy in the NBA. I don't think that he'll be a 4. I think he's more of a 5. He's one of the best defenders in this draft, and I do think that maybe someday he'll be able to guard 1 through 5, which is a very rare skill in the NBA, and it's very valuable. I think that he can be a very nice complement to Karl Anthony Towns, especially if he can improve as a shooter, and he can play the 4 alongside Towns. He can be the perfect guy for them, and that is why I have them taking him at the 17th pick. With the 18th overall pick, I have the Mavs taking Desmond Bane from TCU. Bane is a guy we've seen fly up draft boards, and I have him all the way in the top 20 after being a second-round type guy prior to this playoff run, pretty much. I think that Bane is going to be a solid NBA role player due to his ability to shoot the ball and play good defense, and the Mavs do need some wings, as we saw Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dorian Finney-Smith not exactly be the optimal guys to have guarding Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So Bane could be another option for them at the wing, and that's why I have them taking him with the 18th pick. At 19 overall, I have the Brooklyn Nets, not New York Nets, Brooklyn Nets taking Jalen Smith from Maryland. I think that Stick Smith is going to be a solid NBA player due to his ability as a shot contester on the defensive end of the floor, as well as a guy who can shoot the ball a little bit on the offensive end of the floor, and I think that he can be a solid role player for the Nets. With the 20th overall pick, I have the Miami Heat selecting Aleksej Pokusevski from Olympiacos B, I think is what it's called. It's like that team that Giannis played for in Greece. It's the same one, I believe. However, I'm not a believer in Pokusevski. I don't see it with him. He was playing against terrible competition, and he still didn't really look that great. Like, he looked pretty good, but not that good, and I don't see him going much higher than 20. However, I do think the Heat could take a shot at him due to their established core and having one of the best developmental systems in the entire NBA. They could make it work with him, and if they can, he could be one of the guys who you say, wow, how did he fall all the way to 20? So right here I have the Heat taking a shot in the dark at Aleksej Pokusevski. At the 21st overall pick, I have the slide ending for Cole Anthony, and I have him going to the Philadelphia 76ers. Cole Anthony at North Carolina this year struggled because he didn't have a great team around him, and he did not look good at all as the primary ball handler. He really, really struggled to get anything going, as we saw him shoot the ball very poorly and really just not show much as an efficient player or as a playmaker. I think that he is a very high bust potential guy, and there's no way he should go in the lottery. I have a lot of questions about his game, and I think that Austin Rivers is a very likely scenario for how his NBA career should go. That's why I have him dropping all the way to 21, but I do think that the Sixers could kind of use an Austin Rivers type guy who can score the ball a little bit and provide another option for them outside of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. So I have them taking Cole Anthony here at pick 21. With the 22nd pick in the draft, I have the Denver Nuggets selecting Isaiah Stewart from Washington. Stewart is a pretty standard big guy, can play the 4 or the 5, although I think he's more likely to be a 5 in the NBA than a 4. He has shown potential to be maybe a little stretchy. He didn't do it in games last year, but he has shown that potential in the past, and I do think that it is very possible that he could end up being a solid starter in the NBA. And if you're able to get that type of guy at 22, that is an excellent result. And with Paul Millsap, Jeremy Grant, and Miles Plumlee all being Mason Plumlee, not Miles Plumlee, with them all being free agents this upcoming season, I think that the Nuggets should invest at one of the big spots, and I think that Isaiah Stewart is the best big guy on the board here, so that's who I have them taking. With the 23rd pick in the draft, I have the Utah Jazz taking Zeke Nnaji from Arizona. Zeke is one of my favorite players in the draft, and I have him much higher here than a lot of people do. I think that he is going to end up being a very switchable big guy who can guard wings and maybe even some guards in the NBA. He can move his feet very well. He has shown apparently some potential as a three-point shooter, and if he can do that, I do think that Zeke Nnaji will be a very good role player in the NBA, and that's why I have him all the way up here at 23 to the Jazz. With the 24th overall pick, I have the Milwaukee Bucks, my favorite team, just a side note, taking Malachi Flynn from San Diego State. I don't have that written down here. I wrote down Tre Jones from Duke, but I am the biggest Malachi Flynn fan in the world. Actually, not true. I know Sam Vecini from The Athletic is very high on him as well, but I love Malachi Flynn. I think that he's going to be an excellent NBA player, and I see him as a starting point guard somewhere down the line. I think that he should maybe even go higher than this. Like, I would maybe have him going over Cole Anthony, so maybe that's a change we'll see later in my next mock draft that comes out, but I do think that Malachi Flynn translates to being a really good NBA player due to his ability as a team defender, as a shooter, as a playmaker, as a ball handler. He can do it all, and I think that he's going to be a starter in the NBA, and I would love to see him on my Milwaukee Bucks. With the 25th overall pick, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder taking Xavier Tillman from Michigan State. Danilo Gallinari is a free agent this offseason. Steven Adams is a free agent next offseason. This team is going to need some big guys, and I think that Tillman is probably the best big guy on the board at this point. He has shown an ability as a playmaker, and he's a great, great defender. Maybe the best big man defender in this draft. Actually, that's not true. He's not as good as Wiseman and Okongwu, but outside of the top 5 prospects in the entire draft, I'd say he's the best big man defender. Tillman is going to be an excellent NBA, not excellent, but he is going to be a solid NBA role player in my belief due to his ability as a playmaker from the big man spots, which we have seen with Bam Adebayo and Nikola Jokic is a very valuable skill. He is also, like I said before, a great defender. Obviously, the rest of his offensive game could use a bit of polish as he's not great scoring the ball, and he is a bit undersized, so rebounding might be a bit of a struggle as he's only 6'8". However, I do think that at 25, this is a very possible area for him to fall, and I like the fit with the Thunder. With the 26th overall pick, I have the Boston Celtics taking Tre Jones from Duke. I had Malachi Flynn here at first, but I decided to move Malachi up a bit and have Tre Jones fall to 26, where I'm sure the Celtics would love to get him as a point guard of the future once Kemba Walker retires. I do think that he is another starting caliber point guard, as there are a lot of these guys in the draft. I think we'll see maybe 1 or 2 more even go off the board in these last 4 picks, but Tre Jones won the ACC Player of the Year, won the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, had some great college production, was a great college player, and I think that some of it will transfer over to the NBA, as we'll see him be a good playmaker, a guy who can be a primary, or probably not primary. It'll be better for him if he is able to play alongside some big wings that can handle the scoring load. And that's why the Celtics could be a perfect fit, as they have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum locked up moving forward, and he could be their point guard of the future learning under Kemba Walker could be amazing for him, and I think that this would be a great situation. With the 27th overall pick, I have the New York Knicks taking Tyrell Terry from Stanford. Terry is one of the better shooters in the draft, and I think that the Knicks need to upgrade their shooting quite a bit, as they were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the NBA this year. He could provide a shooter alongside RJ Barrett, someone who could space the floor for RJ a bit, and he apparently has been putting on a bit of weight, which is good because I thought that he would get killed on the defensive end of the floor, but if he's able to put on some strength, that'll go a long ways toward making him a solid NBA player. With the 28th overall pick, I have the Los Angeles Lakers taking Cassius Winston from Michigan State. Cassius was one of the better players in college basketball for the past couple of years, and I think that one day, once again, he will be a starting point guard in the NBA. This draft is just stocked with point guards, and Cassius is another guy who can be a really good player. He can shoot the ball pretty well. He's a great ball handler and playmaker. He's a okay defender, although I don't know if that's going to translate over the NBA, where he might be a liability on that end of the floor. But I do think that having another guy who can be maybe a bit of a Rondo light for them, someone who can learn under Rondo and step into that role once Rondo's imminent decline occurs, because I do think that's coming because Rondo's up there in age. I do think that Cassius can be a nice guy for them moving forward, and that's why I have them taking him at 28. With the 29th overall pick, I have the Toronto Raptors taking Josh Green. He's a solid wing. He's a pretty good defender. The swing skill with him is the shooting, and if he can improve that, he'll be a really good 3-and-D guy in the NBA. Finally, with the 30th overall pick, we have the Boston Celtics taking Leandro Bolmaro. This team is really lacking in roster spots, so I think that taking a draft and stash type guy like Bolmaro could be perfect for them. Bolmaro is a wing, and he could be another solid guy for them moving forward as a guy who could come off the bench. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I covered the entire first round here, and I get that it was a bit of a long one, but it was a lot of fun to make. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment on what draft picks you would change and what guys you think that I have too low or too high. That's it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.